Hello and welcome back to the Nest and Inside the Iggles live show. Thank you guys very much for joining us on this Friday, October 27th. We got a good show for you guys. We got Jeff and Brandon are going to join us. One thing that Jeff and I did this morning, we interviewed Dean Jones. He covers the Washington Commanders for Fansided, and also he covers the Carolina Panthers as well. So he lives a pretty, just sad life all around. As far as interviews go, let's say this: when we did our interviews for the Dolphins, for the Jets, and for the Buccaneers, everything was kind of on the up and up for those teams. So we got a lot of energy. Dean, quite downtrodden. And also in his defense, it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon where he was, so he was tired after a long day. So just keep that all in mind. It was a great interview. Dean was great. I love Dean. Dean was phenomenal. But the inevitable defeat, and no, maybe not inevitable defeat is the wrong word for it. But the inevitable demise, I think, is the right way. That's going to be the way that I phrase it. That it's palpable. It's palpable, and you're going to be able to kind of tell. But it's about a 15-minute long interview. Let's pull that up right now, and we'll talk to you on the other side of it.
From the other side of the country is my main man, Dean Jones, Fansided's editor over at Riggles Rag, our site dedicated exclusive to Washington Commanders content, and also Cat Crave, a site that we dedicate strictly to the Carolina Panthers. How you doing today, buddy?
Yeah, good, man. How are you?
Everything's great. Wanted to go behind enemy lines, get a little Commanders content, trying to see if we could pick your brain a little bit. So we appreciate you taking time out of your day and hang out with us, okay?
No problem at all. Happy to do it.
I'm just going to start with someone near and dear to our hearts, Ron Rivera. He's an Eagle. We love him to death, but doesn't seem to be doing very well over there with the Commanders. How long is his leash? You guys thinking about firing him? What's going on?
Well, his seat was hot coming in. Scalding now. I mean, started well enough, 2-0. It wasn't perfect, really. Poor opposition. Big comeback in Denver. And then they've lost 4 of the last 5. So it's hard to see a scenario where he lasts the season. Although kind of Josh Harris, as you well know from kind of the 76ers, is patient and won't do kind of anything rash before taking everything into consideration. As long as they're mathematically got a chance of making the playoffs, I can't see him kind of making any changes in the season. Obviously, once and if that scenario comes to fruition, I think pressure from his other owners, kind of Magic Johnson's already voicing his displeasure on Twitter about kind of the way things are going right now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the changes sort of come in then. He's putting the wheels in motion with his own football hire this week, kind of the analytics expert, which is the way he wants to go about things. So the writing's on the wall, I've got to be honest, unless there's kind of a drastic turnaround between now and the next sort of 9 games after this one.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I think the question's probably better, whose job is safe? Because it seems like there's a whole gang of people that could probably skedaddle. But
yeah,
like Eric Bieniemy?
It's hard to say. I would say everyone's on the chopping block at the moment.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I mean, from top to bottom, Jason Wright, president, all the way down. If they're going to kind of start fresh, I mean, it's going to have to be a complete clear out for me. Martin Mayhew doesn't really do a lot as a GM, kind of because Rivera's got final say on personnel. So
yeah,
starting afresh, picking a new GM and then picking the head coach might be the best way to go, the more traditional route. I know Jason Wright might be the safest out of the lot, considering he's kind of worked with Josh Harris and everybody through the buying process and their own integration. So if I was to say one person was safe, it would probably be Jason Wright for now. Eric Bieniemy maybe, depending on whether he can do enough to get the head coaching job for one, and 2, whether they go with an offensive-minded head coach and his kind of services won't be required. in the same capacity they are now. So it's a tough predicament for a lot of people in the building currently.
That's like it. So every week I write I do like a vibe check on the Eagle the opposing team's fans, and it is I mean just a plethora of hashtag Fire Ron Rivera, Fire Ron Rivera season, tank for Caleb, those kinds of things. I mean, is that wrong? Is that just what the only vibes are now?
I think it's getting to that point, to be honest with you. If this was kind of his second season or whatever, it would be a different story. But this is his fourth year. They haven't had a winning record. They've been to the playoffs once, basically by default, when the NFC East was so bad and they won it. And nothing seems to be getting better. I mean, the same old problems. The offensive line, he's not invested well enough in. Defense isn't living up to expectations. And there doesn't really seem to be a lot of adjusting going on. He likes to delegate, Rivera. I mean, that's where he's got Bieniemy, that's where he's got Jack Del Rio, and he kind of manages the entire sort of grouping. But the way things are going right now, I think change might be the best thing, to be honest.
It's a quarterback league, and we say it all the time. Are the Commanders' problems simply as fixable as just adding a quarterback who's capable, as opposed to Sam Howell? Is it much deeper than that? Like, could it be as simple as like adding like an elite talent? Could it be as simple as like drafting a Caleb Williams? Does that even get close to turning around this franchise, or is the problems just too deep to just fix that easily?
You've got to fix the offensive line. I mean, Sam's doing really, really well considering what's in front of him. I mean, the kid's getting almost no time every time he drops back to pass. I mean, last weekend against the Giants, I don't know how much you saw it, but it was an absolute disgrace from start to finish. They had absolutely no idea where kind of Wink Martindale's blitz packages were coming from the first snap where he got sacked to kind of towards the end when they looked as if they might be getting back into the game, and then it all went to pot yet again. But it all starts with the offensive line. I mean, they signed Andrew Wiley. He's been terrible. Nick Gates hasn't been much better. Didn't draft kind of an Osiris Torrance or a John Michael Schmitz in the second round, which for me was malpractice of the highest order. They'd already gone with Emmanuel Forbes. They did not need another defensive back, considering they already had Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, Derek Forrest, and Cameron Curl at the safety spot. So that's really coming back to haunt them. So it starts there. I mean, Sam's playing well, considering what's in front of him. I mean, and he's kind of a hard evaluation because until the protection improves and they establish the run, because there's no running game either because of the line, it's hard to know what to make of him, but I would say there's been far more good than bad.
Yeah, you bring up the drafting thing, and it seems kind of like a moot point now since he's been benched. But what were the general thoughts when that Emmanuel Forbes pick came through when Christian Gonzalez was there? What were you like hopeful? Was it like, oh, okay, I think that they might be onto something here. We like this kid, or was it like what the hell was that? What the hell were they thinking?
Yeah, I mean, they loved him from start to finish. He was always their guy, like based on what you've seen kind of after they released the kind of Commanders log where it went through their entire draft process, and Forbes was 1A for them from right out the gate, really, which was surprising considering kind of Christian Gonzalez's performances at Oregon. It's the size thing. I mean, the coaching staff need to take some blame as well. I mean, sticking him and keeping him, more importantly, on AJ Brown in the first meeting between the Eagles was not wise. I mean, especially because Kendall Fuller's playing really well at the moment. I mean, I don't know why they didn't have him shadow AJ when he was starting to get momentum. And then the week after, they did the same thing. They stuck him on DJ Moore, and he's got burned again, and he's been seldom seen since. He got a few snaps at the Giants last weekend, but sitting him and letting him in from the sidelines is all well and good, but when you've kind of got Benjamin St. Juste getting burned by Jalen Hyatt on countless occasions last week, I mean, what do they have to lose but throwing him in, but keeping him away from kind of the team's best receiving option, which he's not kind of ready for at the moment.
This used to be a rabid fan base. Like, there was nothing like home games at RFK Stadium with Washington fans. Like, you had fat guys showing up with like hog noses on, dressed in skirts. Like, it was just crazy. You don't see anything towards that anymore. Like, I don't see anything that seems consistent with like just an energized fan base. Like, and it's probably for good reason. They haven't been given much to cheer for. What needs to be done to win the fans back over and get them back to what we used to see back in the 90s?
I think it's coming slowly. I mean, Dan Snyder obviously had a lot to do with it. He kind of broke the fan base almost to the point of no return, really. And you could only see how with the atmosphere once that sale got confirmed by the owners. I mean, it was absolutely incredible scenes all over the place. It'll take time. I mean, they've sold out all the home games so far. I mean, I don't know how many Eagles fans are going to be in the building this weekend, though, to be honest. He's making plans behind the scenes. He's improved fan experience. They're upgrading parts of FedEx. He kind of installed bleachers at the training camp, which kind of sounds small, but compared to what was there before, I mean, it was a big improvement. It's going to take time. But it all starts with building a winning football product, which they haven't had a lot of either. So I think that's the only reason. I think Rivera might be fired during the season if they do start kind of going on a losing run, because they've got some really tough games down the stretch. Haven't played Dallas once yet. I know they've got Miami as well. And fans start voting with their feet. I mean, that's going to make Josh Harris's decision pretty easy from a financial standpoint, if nothing else.
So talking about some tough games, it seemed like in that week 4 game that the Commanders kind of gave the Eagles their best shot. Like that, like they did what they could do, went to overtime. Because you mentioned before that the running game just isn't working, and that's how they beat the Eagles last year. What is the way that the Commanders could beat the Eagles on Sunday?
Oh God, they've got to show up front on the defensive line for me. Okay. Haven't seen enough of that from, especially the interior. Daron Payne's really struggling this year. Kind of lived up to his big money contract. I know he got the bag in the spring, but he's not kind of living up to that right now. Jonathan Allen is clearly frustrated with how things are going. Chase and Montez have been really good, though, to be fair, but it's on the interior, and that's kind of where the Eagles are strong as well. So that would be a worry. But how you beat them, I mean, the second half was just kind of a pass-happy thing in the last game, wasn't it? So whether Bieniemy's going to adopt that or kind of go back to what worked last year when Washington won, I don't know. But I mean, they've just got to start fast. I mean, it's the slow starts are killing them at the moment. I can't really remember a game where they were in a lead early in the game without having to kind of come back like they did at Denver, like they did at Philly before, kind of falling in overtime. So starting well is the core component.
I ask this to everybody that comes on, like, who are the unknown guys? Like, who are the guys that we don't necessarily give the national attention to that may actually give the Eagles some problems and help the Commanders spearhead themselves to a victory?
Sam Cosmi's been really good. I know the offensive line's had some problems, but he's made a major switch from right tackle to right guard. He's actually been the best of albeit a very bad bunch. But I would say he would definitely be one. Percy Butler's doing okay, filling in for Derek Forrest at safety too. So I'd keep an eye on him. And it looks like Kaliki Huston's going to get some more time at linebacker this week. Cody Barton doesn't look like he's going to be ready to go. So fans have been calling for that change as well for a long time. He's explosive. He showed out really well last year in Week 18 against Dallas Cowboys. Was really good in camp, but just hasn't been getting a look in. Obviously, Rivera likes kind of your stereotypical linebacker in the middle, but it'll be exciting to see how he does as well, especially against kind of DeAndre Swift and underneath kind of formidable kind of rushing attack that they'll be facing.
And this talking about that, it kind of put this question in my head. What's going on with Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson? Like when Antonio Gibson came in, the whole thought was like he's going to be the next Christian McCaffrey, and then that just didn't happen. Is that because of poor offensive line play? Has he himself just been a disappointment? Or like what happened there? Like why is that not something that's super deadly as it was like built up to be?
I mean, the potential's there. I mean, Antonio Gibson's got ball security issues, which is why he's kind of struggled to make a similar impact as he did when he went over 1,000. Obviously, he's been relegated to second fiddle, more of a pass catcher.
Yeah.
The enemy doesn't really stay with the run if it's not working. Kind of if he's got those kind of 15, 20 scripted plays and it's not working after that, and the commander's kind of in a hole more often than not, then he'll just turn the keys over to Sam Howell and just go pass heavy. I mean, even kind of Chris Rodriguez Jr. has been getting more carries than Gibson lately over the last couple of weeks. Rookie out of Kentucky, he's actually really running really well, a lot stronger than either Robinson or Gibson, kind of in between the tackles, which is why I think they might use him more this weekend just to kind of keep the Eagles defense honest. But it's a lot to do with the offensive line. I would say scheme as well, and just getting behind it. As I said before, I mean, there comes a time in a game where you kind of have to abandon it, and more often than not, the Commanders are in kind of that situation.
Gotcha. Because with the scheme and everything, like with the new with Eric Bieniemy coming in, like that was kind of a big splash. Like, it was like, oh, the Commanders are doing something real here by getting him. Is that do you blame any of the poor performances on him? Like, can you see like what he's doing, like what he's trying to do at least? Like,
you can see what you can kind of see what he's trying to do. I mean, if there was one criticism, it would be to kind of play to the running back's strengths. I mean, bashing Brian Robinson at the middle is just not working at the moment. Mm-hmm. And like I say, once those kind of 10, 15 scripted plays don't work on the run, then he'll kind of just go away from it, even though he was a running back himself, which is kind of flipped the switch from how he started kind of with the Vikings as a running backs coach to going with Andy Reid's. Obviously had a massive influence on him. But I mean, there's a lot of them underperforming and not doing him any favours either. I mean, Jahan Dotson's really struggling. De'Ami Brown, Logan Thomas comes in and out of games. I mean, these are big names who should be performing much better than they are at the moment. So he's kind of working with one hand tied behind his back, really, which is kind of not what he bought into, I guess.
I did not before the season. I did not have Curtis Samuel being wide receiver 2. I did not see that.
I don't think anybody did, but he's one of those guys that the enemy loves. Kind of one of those multi-purpose kind of weapons he can put all over the line of scrimmage, even in the backfield, and he can scheme players like that open. Whereas kind of Jahan Dodson's more of a slot, more of an X, and then he'll struggle to create separation himself. And then when the ball does come his way this year, he's having trouble with drops as well, which is concerning.
No way Eric Bieniemy gets this head coaching job.
Ooh, I wouldn't say no way, especially with Magic Johnson there, but I would say unlikely at the moment.
You got a prediction?
A prediction for the next head coach. I actually did an article about it. I would go with Ben Johnson from the Lions if they can get him. Obviously, this is going to be a hot gig now. It wasn't in the past when Dan Snyder was there. But like I say, you've got a big market. You have got a big fan base who would return if kind of they were inspired to do so. Plans for a new stadium whenever that's going to come around. A decent enough roster. They've got kind of 91.5 million in salary cap space next year before cutting a couple. So there's enough money to kind of spend and retain who they want. So it'll arguably be the most coveted head coaching seat, I would say.
Anything else, Jake?
Yeah. But what do you have like a prediction for the game?
I'm going to go Eagles 28-10.
10? Wow. We'll take it. We'll take it.
Tell
Tell them how they can follow your work, man.
Thanks, man.
Tell them how they can follow your work.
On rigglesrag.com for Commander stuff, catcrate.com for Panther stuff, who are equally as terrible, and you can find me on Twitter at Dean Jones _.
Appreciate you, man. Good having you. Worst of luck to your team this week. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to hang out with us.
Thanks, guys. Keep up the great work.
Just a miserable. Thank you very much to Dean Jones for joining us earlier today. I think that was pretty insightful.
Dean's going through it, man. Dean's going through it.
He did. That is
I've been talking to him for 2 of them years, man. It's tough to cover that team. Like, I can't imagine. Like, it's their problem. I could care less about what the Commanders are doing, but that's a tough gig there, man. And you got Carolina. Yeah. Yuck.
It's just different. Like when you see somebody complaining about it, like on Twitter or something like that, like you're like, oh, I'm not putting a face to the words that I'm reading, but then having a conversation with somebody about it, it's like, this is actually like painful to them.
Life has not been terrible as an Eagles fan. Like, I cannot just shout out to like Justin Freed and everybody like who cover like the Jets and guys like that. Like, it's tough just finding new ways to break down losses. Like, it's hard to do.
Yeah, especially the Eagles bounce back after a loss, probably higher than where they were before the loss, and then the Commanders sunk to a new low last week. It's certainly bad vibes going on over there. But like I said, we got Jeffrey Knox, we got Brandon Pockris here. How are you guys doing today?
Great, man, great. I gotta stop doing this thing where I unplug on Fridays before shows and stuff because I come back and all kinds of weird stuff is going on. Like, apparently Derrick Henry's a trade target for the Eagles now, and Jordan Davis has a hamstring issue. It's like I try to take days off when I know we're going to work late, especially on a game day, but doesn't pay to take days off, man. You come back and you feel like you're in the woods and you have no idea what's going on with this team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing well. The NFL is just crazy. You know, Brock Purdy might be the first person to get concussed and come back in the same week because, nothing surprises me when it comes to this league. We basically had a Jets cornerback saying today that he got concussed during the Chiefs game, didn't tell anyone, and that's why it was worse than it was. So yeah, it's just a constant fun cycle of stuff, basically Mad Libs in the NFL, as I'd like to call it. It's pretty funny at times, but another fun weekend of football coming up. Thursday night game was pretty good, and excited to see what happens.
Yeah, that's good. And we could obviously we can touch on this on Monday when it's, the day before the trade deadline. Jeffy brought up the like some trade rumors and stuff. Are there any of them that you're buying into? Because like you said, there's the Derrick Henry one that's out there. The slot for Indianapolis, I'm blanking on his name right now. Has been another one. I'm gonna look that up while I'm talking. But are there any of these that you're kind of buying into? I know there's been a handful of people that have said that Howie's not done, and I think like the most probably legitimate. I say legitimate. The most trustworthy one was when Diana Rossini said it because she is like always on top of her game. Yeah. Is there any that you guys are kind of buying into?
I mean, I guess the most fun one, I guess you want to put that in air quotes, would be Derrick Henry. It's just like, are the Eagles going to pay up for a running back? Like, it seems
that's
like
my question. Yeah.
I guess you could look at it in two ways, where it's like, on the one hand, why wouldn't? I guess this would be the no side. They have Swift, they have Gainwell, they like what they're doing with that. But I guess if you want to make a claim for why it would make sense, you're basically getting Derrick Henry to be what Rashad Penny was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But on a much higher scale. And then you have a three-headed monster of Henry, Swift, Gainwell, and then along with Jalen Hurts, kind of makes that offense very, very two-dimensional. Instead of like, hey, we got to shift away. It's, oh, we got to defend Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown on the same team again. Well, this sucks.
The guy I was thinking of was Kenny Moore.
Okay.
The nickel corner for the Colts.
He was good.
Yeah, so that was that one. But yeah, I don't buy into like the Derrick Henry thing. It doesn't make, like, yes, of course that's fun. That's incredibly fun. It would have been really fun if the Eagles got Jonathan Taylor too. That would have been fun as well. But anybody, like, listen, nobody's gonna tout Kenny Gainwell's prolific career, but he can do good behind this offensive line. You don't need an absolute steamroller tank to be the guy to be a good running back behind this Eagles offensive line. We haven't even seen Rashad Penny. So that one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
The Derrick Henry landing spot to me has always been Baltimore. Baltimore seems like the main spot I feel like he's going to end up, because it just makes sense. None of their running backs are healthy.
Right.
You're relying on Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, who are good backs, but they're not Derrick Henry. You got Derrick Henry. We're talking about the Eagles offense and what it would do for them. Baltimore's offense become that much better too. So, and they legitimately, I think, have a need at that position.
If he goes to Baltimore, that's a death sentence for him. He'll get hurt the first game. That's just what happens to Baltimore running backs. It is a death sentence.
The yards per attempt average doesn't seem to slack off or anything either. I mean, 2020, I think he averaged like 5.5 yards a carry, but that was also the 2,000-yard season. And you know what tends to happen to guys after that happens. But the workload on that guy is what I'm worried about. Like,
he's 30.
1,800 carries over his career. 349 attempts on last season. And I think the year prior to the 2,000-yard season, 303 carries there. Close to 400 in 2020. I think the number dipped down because of injuries last year, but then back up to 349 last year. That's a lot of work for anybody.
Oh, yeah.
I think the fun part is, like you guys mentioned, is thinking about this guy running behind that Eagles offensive line and what that looks like in the fourth quarter. Like, who wants to get blocked by those guys and try to tackle that guy, especially when it gets cold outside? But
yeah,
I don't see the Derrick Henry thing. Like, I'd be excited for like a 1-year rental, like just because this offense would be virtually unstoppable at that point. Like, what do you do? But I just don't see it. Like, I'd like to start a rumor myself. Like, I'd go Carolina, go after Brian Burns. Give me like one more edge rusher that's elite, like to go along with these guys. Maybe somebody to kind of like fill in for what we thought Brandon Graham. Love Brandon Graham to death. Nobody loves Brandon Graham more than me, but I think age has finally set in there. But still have fingers crossed, hope that he can like come up big in some spots later on down the season and in the playoffs and stuff. Maybe we're resting him to some degree, but another edge rusher, I'm fine.
Yep.
Maybe pluck like one of those bottom feeders who are trying to, have some sort of fire sale or something of that nature. But I'm satisfied. Once we got Kevin Byard, I was like, that's pretty much it for me. That's the safety I've been looking for. We invested in the good one, and he's in a contract next year too, right?
I thought this is the last year on
Kevin Byard.
Yeah.
He's on the contract next year.
Okay. I think what it was, Tennessee had like an out on him. Like, they could have gotten out after this season, but they decided to go ahead and deal him. So he's still in the contract next year. But next year we'll be talking about contracts then. But Kevin Byard for a year and a half, I'll rock with that.
Yeah, you can't be mad about it. Yeah, but yeah, you bring up the edge rusher thing. Yeah, so get an edge rusher, get some, like you said, no huge star talent or anything like that. Please, love of God, don't try another Robert Quinn kind of a thing. Yeah. But like, as soon as you do that, Derek Barnett, kick rocks.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of here. Congratulations on being serviceable, stopping the run. That is literally the job description. You're not going above or beyond anything there.
Maybe they Terrell Edmonds him, and maybe they ship him off as part of a package for an actual edge rusher that's better. Like, so we want your edge rusher, here's ours, and that kind of thing, and maybe like throwing a draft pick. But I'm not exactly even sure how many draft picks these guys have left. Like, I know they got the first rounder and they got 2 second rounders, but like all the late round picks are gone now, right? We got like 5 picks left. I can't remember what the rules are about trading potential compensatory picks. I forgot about compensatory picks.
Yeah, they'll be able to get. I think we're talking 3rd round picks for those comp picks too. But I don't know the ins and outs of the rules behind trading compensatory picks or when those actually like finalize and become tangible. I don't know that. I don't know that.
It'd be wild before we know about off season next year.
But if Howie's is actively shot, because that was the whole thing, is like, yeah, Howie's making calls. Like, Howie's literally always making calls. Like, that doesn't necessarily surprise me that he's
that never is.
Yeah, that's just what he does when he wakes up. He just calls. He calls, whether it's the Saints GM or the Titans GM. They maybe not calls about trade. Maybe he's just prank calling them or something like that, saying, "Hey, nerd, you're bad. I'm good," and then hangs up. That would probably be a good phone call for him to have. But
I don't know why the Titans and the Saints are still taking Howie Roseman's calls. Like, I just don't get it. Like, Are you trying to get yourself fired? Like, I don't know what it is. Like, unless they have like some wink, wink, handshake type deal going on in Tennessee, like this guy know his job secure. Like, it's almost like he's trying to get fired at this point. It's it's funny.
I think going into the Kevin Byard thing, maybe like what was the guy's name? John Robinson or something like that. The one that did the AJ trade and then got fired immediately after they played. Yeah. I'm wondering if this new fella is like, no, I'm better than that guy. I'm going to show him. And then he traded an all-pro safety. And I don't know. I don't know if it necessarily. We'll have to wait and see if it solves an issue. Solves the safety issue. It's certainly an upgrade, no matter which way you look at it. I mean, the bar was set incredibly low in order to upgrade, but I mean, can't be worse than
before this season started. If we weren't going to get somebody like Jesse Bates, Kevin Byard, Justin Simmons, those were the guys I was thinking about. Like, and I thought that was impossible. So for how would he pull that off? Like, you get no more complaint. I mean, I haven't been complaining anyway, but you get nothing out of me. Like, and this is a salary cap area. You're not gonna have like stars at every position. Everybody wants to believe that because they play fantasy football, or they can just turn their salary cap off and trade for whoever they want to in Madden. But you're just not gonna have stars at every position. But the Eagles are as close to that as possible. Like 2 all-pro level corners, all-pro level safety. What else? You got an underrated Josh Sweat, who is statistically better than Micah Parsons. You got on the other side, you got Hassan Reddick. You got Nolan Smith waiting in the wings. You got Jalen Carter, who's still figuring it out and is dominant.
Right.
And then you got Fletcher Cox, who may not be as great as Tony Romo put it, he may not be as great as he once was, but sometimes he's great as he's always been. So, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. We ain't even got it to the offensive side of the ball. There's like some stars over there too, if you hadn't heard.
Yeah, no kidding. That I don't know if you guys saw that the Jerry Jones saying that he's not going to reach out to anybody for a trade. Somebody's going to have to reach out to him. He's art of the dealing it. He's absolutely crushing it with negotiations right now.
I don't think art of the deal is saying your complete intentions in public.
No, you've read the book.
No, I've not.
Okay,
just an assumption.
But yeah, that's very funny. He says, I'm comfortable with where our team is right now. It's like, buddy, 2 weeks ago, you just got your D kicked in by San Francisco. Like, I don't know if that's the way you want to look at it. It's stupid. But okay, so that's trade talk. Let's get into the Week 8 game with the Washington Commanders. The Eagles are going to Washington on Sunday. It'll be the early slate of games. Every NFC East game is in that early slate. Do you guys like that? Do you guys like watching other NFC East teams?
Sometimes in my old age, I'm starting to. These night games are tough, man. Like Sunday night, that was brutal. Like, you're finishing up 1:00 in the morning. It's just, I'm getting old, man. Like, I really like these 1:00 games now. Like, I really do. Like, I didn't realize how much of a thing that was and how cool that was, but wrapping it like 4, maybe getting some work done. I got about 6:00, watching the Sunday night game with no stress, but it's hard to chill all day because you're going to be up all night and then get in work mode and sit at 7:00. You're telling yourself, okay, now I got to gear up and get ready for this game. It's like it's tough to do. It's tough to do as a fan. It's tough to do when you're actually covering the team every day.
What about you, Brandon? Do you like what? Oh, I guess Jets are playing the Giants this week, so you're probably going to be double screening it or single screening it.
Yeah. So
things are going.
I mean, the way I look at it is just. I just enjoy watching football.
Yeah. Fair.
Like in general, like no matter if it's 9:30 a.m., which that's pushing it a little bit. I'm usually up by 10. But whether it's the early game, the night game, the middle afternoon games, like I just enjoy it. But I feel like, it depends what kind of watching you want to do. Like if you're trying to get a really good sense of what the team's like and what the true, I guess, perspective of what's going on is, I feel like the primetime game is the best way because you're able to divert like your singular focus to what's going on. Whereas like this week, every NFC East team's playing. And if you want to watch a specific team, you got to pick either like the Cowboys or the Giants. And obviously the Eagles are playing the Commanders, but you can't physically understand every single little thing that's going on in every single game during the 1:00 slate, during the 4:00 slate. But
right.
I don't know. It depends for me.
Well, Jeff, I got bad news for you. This is the Eagles' last 1 o'clock game of the season in week 8.
Wait, it's their last 1 o'clock game?
Their
They
last
had two
pending
1
flexes.
o'clock games scheduled. Both of them were against the Commanders. Everything else is like 4 o'clock or a primetime game.
Yeah, this is the very last one.
I don't. There's no way. All right,
Like,
I gotta pull this up.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it
I didn't believe
turns
myself,
out,
but everything's like 4 o'clock. That's what happens when you're the defending NFC's champs, and everybody's expecting, or excuse me, the conference champions. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So we're in week 8.
Yep.
Okay. Dallas is 425. Then it's a bye week. Monday night,
Yeah.
425. Sunday night, 425. 4:30 on Christmas Day.
Yep.
Oh nope. They got one more. They got
Do
one
they?
more. Yeah.
Oh, the Cardinals.
Cardinals. Yeah.
okay.
That's
Cardinals are 1 o'clock. But
No.
that's honestly impressive. That's honestly impressive that they have one more 1 o'clock game.
And that to be determined Giants game, won't have anything to do with like seating or anything, but they always find a way to put that last game with the Giants in like at the 4 o'clock window. So that's probably what's going to happen there.
They'll throw it on prime time. Just
I could see, like it can like the AFC North or the AFC East or the NFC West, like a game where it's like coming down to winning in, like you had with the Chargers Raiders
right.
in the past few years. Like I feel like that'll be it. Not unless the Giants completely turn around their season, which I don't think happens.
Got to think no. But yeah, and then I think we're into flex scheduling season, so who knows what's going to happen there. But like I said, Eagles are going to Landover, Maryland to play the Commanders for the second game. This is actually the second game of the season for the Eagles, which poses, and this is not an original thought by me, and I heard somebody else say this, I saw it on Twitter or something like that. This is actually going to be the first time that we actually get to see both Brian Johnson and Sean Desai make adjustments. When it comes to something like that, specifically for this game, what kind of adjustments? I guess probably Sean Desai would be the one that we could focus on first. Because in that first game, the Commanders scored 31 points. What kind of adjustments would you like to see Sean Desai make?
I think for me, it starts with keeping Sam Howell in the pocket and basically what the Jets tried to do to Jalen Hurts in the second half of that Eagles-Jets game, where, yeah, you're getting pressure, but you're rushing the passer in a way where you're not letting him escape and you're not letting him extend plays with his legs. Because if we're learning anything about Sam Howell, and I'm actually a relative fan of him, the guy's going to hold on to the ball for an extremely long time to a point where it's not a sustainable way you can play quarterback in the NFL. This guy's on pace to almost have 100 sacks.
So funny.
If the Eagles defensive line, which just bullied the Miami Dolphins, can rush the passer in a way where they're still getting upfield, they're still being aggressive, but they're not getting out of their rush lanes. They're not over rushing. I guess that'd be the best way to put it. And they keep Sam Howell in kind of like that pocket. They're going to get 8 sacks. And I'll say 8 or over because he'll hold on to the ball. And if the secondary, which is getting Byard now and should be that much better, which is getting healthy, and I think is healthier than they were in that first Commanders game to an extent, the defense is going to have a lot more success than they did. And who knows what Bieniemy and company do on the offensive side of things, the game plan after that first Eagles game. But I feel like the Eagles defense is in a much better spot to play a team like the Commanders, in the sense of they face some different opponents that have challenged them in that regard, and they've stepped up to the plate. Whereas I think that first Commanders game, that Eagles defense hadn't really been tested up to that point.
That's probably fair. Yeah, at that point, I guess Sam Howell was probably the best quarterback that the Eagles had played.
It was kind of a weird game, man. I mean,
oh yeah,
I can't say that the Commanders won't dominate time of possession because we've seen them do it for the past 2 times we played this team. But they're a really pesky team. Like they tend to take possession away from the Philadelphia Eagles. I think I'm confident in the fact that I think the adjustments that we saw that we're hoping that he makes, I think we've seen him make during the course of the weeks that have followed. It's just hard for me to believe that if Sam Howell draws back 41 times in this game, that the Commanders are going to be successful. You're going to let Terry McLaurin be Terry McLaurin. He's always been issues for us. I think somewhere around close to 90 yards on 8 receptions last time. But I think the thing that jumped out at me about the last game was the Commanders had, I think, 5 first downs caused by penalty.
Yes.
Most of those came in like bad situations. 8 of 17 on third down. I think they were perfect on fourth down. I think they had a couple of attempts, if not 3 there. But they just have the tendency to just treat Philadelphia like Philadelphia treats everybody else. Beat them up, keep them on the field, extend drives, things of that nature. This team has to get off of the field on fourth down, and definitely if the fourth down conversions are there, but definitely on third down as well. Force some punts and get the Eagles playing the type of ball that we know they can play. But just playing a pesky team that you play 2 times a year is just always irritating. And the Commanders are always good for cardiac ball as far as I'm concerned. That's the one game, like, you never know what's going to happen, but you always know it's going to be tough. You know it's going to be physically beaten up by the time you come out of there. But I don't think Josh Jobe is going to be in on a fourth down conversion with the game on the line. I don't think I don't think Sam Howell dropping back 41 times scares me. And I'm definitely hoping that we've learned from 5 first downs from penalty, man. That killed us. I think that led to about 14 points, if not more.
So that was one thing that I don't think is. I mean, their penalties have a way of evening themselves out. Like last week, the Eagles had 0 penalties when obviously there should have been some. But in that first game that in week 4, there was what was it? 11 penalties. I have it somewhere.
Yeah, and some of those calls were just like egregious, and they arguably kept Washington in the game longer than they should have been.
And there was the phantom offsides on Landon Dickerson when there was like Daron Payne's hand was on like underneath touching the ball, and like 2 other guys' heads were in the neutral zone, and they called it, and then on 4th and 1, and then the Eagles had to punt. So I mean, there's stuff like that. There was
11 penalties for 80 yards on the Eagles last time.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. That was the Eagles' season high by kind of a lot. I believe any other game it's been like 7 or 8 or something like that. So I think that's one of those things. But I wouldn't necessarily say that's kind of an adjustment. I think that's one of those things where it's just kind of a bizarre thing. But going on to Brandon, what you said about adjusting for Sam Howell. So that is that game and how Sam Howell was able to scramble so much. That was like kind of an anomaly for Sam Howell. That game, he had 6 rushes for 40 yards. And I think it might actually been probably realistically even more than that, because there was one that somebody got a Terrell Edmonds maybe got like a DP or a roughing unnecessary roughness or something like that, like a late hit, a very sketchy late hit out of bounds. But anyway, that's his highest like in his career in this season by a long shot. His second highest rushing yards this season is 19 yards on 4 carries against Chicago. So like it's
20-25 yards scrambling that game too, right? Against the Eagles.
20. Yeah, I see 20 here. So I mean, like that, I think, and that's those things, is that those scrambles that he was able to get, those took away from the sacks that they're very much prone to. In that game, the Eagles had 5 sacks. 3 of those were from Nicholas Morrow, and he's not a sack guy. Like he had a hell of a game that game. He's just not a sack guy. Like this is the kind of a game where if the Eagles are able to keep him in that pocket like he does, they're able to rack up, like Brandon, you said, they probably get like 8 sacks, 9 sacks or something like that, and make that sack total for the Commanders just absolutely balloon.
I guess, like, to that point, right, is that more of a product of their offensive line not being good, how just trying to make things happen down the field, or like a combination of both? Because like it's not like Sam Howell's been this abysmal quarterback this year. He's just taking a lot of sacks, and a lot of times the sacks are differentiated between, you know, sometimes it's the O-line getting beat, sometimes the quarterback holding on to the ball, sometimes it's a coverage sack, and the play calling and the route combinations are just bad. So I personally haven't watched enough like Commanders football to be like, yeah, it's Hal. Yeah, it's the offensive line. But it just kind of seems egregious that the number is this high. And I think it's a lot of different factors. I'm just not sure which one is the highest.
Well, I mean, I think it's all that. I mean, Sam Howell's also holding on to the ball for, I mean, decades and decades. And that's the thing, Jeff, you said that the Commanders always seem to give the Eagles problems. It always seems like that happens in Philly, though. I mean, you look at some of these games. Like, I'm kind of anticipating this to be more like the Carson Wentz game last year, where he got sacked 9 times because he was a statue back there and has the pocket presence of a blind man with no legs. Like he just like in his brain, if somebody got blocked behind him, he's like, that guy ceases to exist in the entirety of the universe, and then that person would come back and sack him. So this seems like this might be the kind of game where, at least in my brain, what I'm hoping is just that absolute thumping that it seems like we're able to give them seemingly once a year, something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
It's always a weird game when we lose to them, like you mentioned, and they're normally in Philly and stuff. Turnovers or you show up, it was just a weird game last time, man. And like all the penalties that resulted in first down, like just uncharacteristic play by the Eagles for the most part. But and we've been complaining about this for our red zone stuff. Like, I don't think the Eagles even got to the red zone anything but about 2 or 3 times. But Commanders, I think 28 of those 31 points, I think all of those were in the red zone. So kind of keeping them out of the red zone and things in there, because when they got in, they scored touchdowns and we just couldn't keep them out of the end zone for whatever.
Yeah. In that game, Commanders were 4 of 5 on red zone trips. Eagles were 1 of 2. So yeah, you're right. 28 points out of the red zone. That's where that comes from.
Yeah,
which is just ugly. As far, I mean, it's. I want to say as far as the offense go, what kind of adjustments need to be made? But they put up 34 points on 31 in regulation, if you want to count it like that.
The only adjustment I'd say is keep doing what's working.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're having great success. I don't know if there's a cornerback on the Commanders that can cover A.J. Brown.
No one.
I think Devonta Smith has potential to have another really good game. I think Dallas Goedert could have another really good game. And you know what? Keep it rolling. Like, you won that first game doing what you did. I think the offense has only improved since then. You know, they hit a speed bump or two, but they've came out on the other side looking a lot better. And if that red zone offense looks even better than what it was in that first matchup, I don't think it matters what Washington does on offense, because it's going to get to a certain point in the game where Sam Howell has to throw the ball, and they're in a pass-heavy script. And the minute that flip happens is when Philadelphia is going to start teeing off in the game. I think will get out of hand.
Yeah, I mean the only real change that's on that defense is that
Forbes is not playing.
Yeah, A.J. Brown's forcibly adopted son, Emmanuel Forbes, has been benched.
Which, sidebar about that, how happy are you that they passed on Christian Gonzalez and took Emmanuel Forbes? Because this is a complete, and I understand Gonzalez is hurt, completely different matchup if Commanders have a legitimate number 1 cornerback on their defense.
A legitimate number 1 quarterback who is the size of a football player.
Yeah.
Like it's
I think I might be just as big as Emmanuel Forbes. And I'm not, trust me, not calling myself an NFL player by any means, but what's the guy weigh? Like 160 pounds? 170?
160 because A.J. Brown's 220. But A.J. Brown is 60 pounds heavier than him. And can run as fast as him.
A 22-year-old sitting at home around the same size should not be like 20 pounds heavier than an NFL like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just,
you're not wrong.
And you're matching him up with A.J. Brown. He flicks him aside like a twig. That's what happened in the first game.
It was so funny. And then Forbes was chirping him too. Like,
that's the thing. I don't even think Forbes is a bad player. I think Forbes is a really twitched up good cornerback. But you're not doing the guy any favors matching him up against A.J. Brown. And you're not doing him any favors by just tossing him into the fire as your number 1 cornerback. Like, this is a guy that, look at his frame. He probably needs a year of development, a year of being in an actual NFL weightlifting program, an actual NFL nutrition program. And I bet you next year, when he puts on some muscle mass, he's going to be that much better of a player. But this is a rookie. This is a rookie cornerback that is one of the smallest players to come into the NFL in recent memory, let alone defenders.
It's just and what would also help is a real defensive coordinator as well.
That too.
Yeah, I'm sure he saw Emmanuel Forbes get cooked by AJ Brown, and Jack Del Rio's like, oh, it's just a dust up.
I had the whole Emmanuel Forbes thing wrong, and I feel like maybe like to some of the points Brandon's making, maybe there's still time for him and things of that nature. But I saw a guy who was a turnover machine in Mississippi State and doing it in the SEC West, which was the best conference in football. I saw a guy that was just like everybody had him on like their top 5 list of corners and things of that nature, including me. I was one of those guys, like I truly screwed this one up. I thought this guy, they might actually be better than Christian Gonzalez because I look at Pac-12 corners and I don't see that when they get to the NFL, things of that nature. I see a lot of good Utah Utes, and then I don't know where they play when they get to the NFL. And I see a lot of, they keep telling me that the Washington Huskies put out all these defensive backs and stuff, and I only think like 2 of them that are actually decent. But I screwed that up, man. Like I maybe it's still time for Emmanuel Forbes, and maybe that's some bad coaching. They really gave him a raw deal trying to put him out there on AJ Brown. Might be one of the best receivers in the world, but I don't know, man. I don't know. But a little history this week. AJ Brown's, takes the record. What's that? That would be 6 straight games of 125 yards receiving or more. And I'm confident you got like the 29th ranked defense against the pass that they're facing. And what did AJ go on last time? 175 yards on 9 touches?
Something like that, yeah.
Yes. So it's gonna be ugly, man. But I'm happy for AJ. Like I was asked this week, is this the best wide receiver that the Eagles have had since Terrell Owens?
I mean, there's no argument other than that. Like that, like it's incredible. Like and I was thinking about this earlier this week. What we're seeing right now is like a generational talent with AJ Brown. On the flip side of that, what we're also seeing, and I hate to keep harping on it, but no, I don't, because it's very funny. Sam Howell is being sacked an extraordinary amount of times, the likes of which we will not see again.
This is like, and I was listening to, I think it was the Ringer fantasy football show. They basically compared it to the sense of like the Jameis Winston
30 for 30
year, where it's something you won't ever see again, ever, because anytime a quarterback will get close to this number, he will get benched.
Oh yeah. When do they put Jacoby Brissett in? I just don't think they do. I think they're so stupid and dumb, and it's very funny.
I don't think it's necessarily them being stupid. They know what Brissett is. Brissett's a good NFL quarterback. He's not a great starter. He's not some guy that's going to elevate your team. He's a guy that comes in, gets the job done, and keeps your team afloat. They want to see what they have in Howell. They have a new ownership. I think there's a possibility that half the roster is cleaned out after this year because they see, hey, this team kind of sucks, and we're just going to clean house. So I don't think that Howell gets yanked unless, he has like an arm and leg decapitated from getting hit so many times.
It's the only thing that can save him.
But, like, think about it's like unfathomable to a sense, because think about like a collision at the NFL. People say, it's like a car crash. And imagine that happening 96 times to one guy. Like, it's I don't think people understand the absolute like absurdity of what we're watching.
The last
until you watch him get hit, it looks like Britton Covey.
Yeah, it does.
It's awful, man. This dude he's not just getting sacked, he's taking shots. This looking like Mike Tyson in his prime, just knocking people out. It's violent, the stuff that's happening to him.
The Commanders are basically treating Sam Howell like Scott Sterling. If you've ever seen that YouTube video,
legend.
He just keeps getting hit in the face, dragging. He walks up, hit in the face again. That's for those that aren't old enough to know what that is. That is one of the best YouTube videos of all time.
Yeah.
I feel old now even referencing that, but I think that's the perfect comparison to Sam Howell. That it's basically Scott Sterling, where he's just getting drilled over and over and over again. And the Commanders just like, good job, buddy. Way to go.
You're not old, man. You're old when you remember when there was no YouTube.
I remember the beginning stages of it before. I remember
YouTube trying to watch YouTube on dial-up. Just like
fair enough. I remember having the iPod Touch, and it didn't even have the YouTube logo. It was just the brown square with the play icon.
Yeah,
I think it was a TV at one point too.
Yeah,
man, Scott Sterling. Haven't seen that in a long time. I'm gonna go watch that later. But yeah, no, like the Giants last week went into that game with 5 sacks. They got 6 sacks in that game. They doubled up their sacks on the year in that game. They're very, very bad.
The same thing happened to the Bears when they played them. They had 5 sacks in that game or something close to that. Before that, they had like 5 sacks all year.
Oh, it's brutal. But let's get into the last couple segments here for this show. Let's do some predictions. Let's start with the AJ Brown continuing his plus 125 plus receiving yard prediction. Do you guys, Jeff, sounds like you think yes?
I don't see how he doesn't. This team is bad against the pass, and they didn't stop Devontae Smith or AJ Brown last time, and I just don't see how they stop him. This is a bad defensive team. Like, case in point, like, you know, the Eagles are struggling, and they're still putting up 31 on them. Was it 38, 31, 34, whatever
30,
it was?
It was 31 in regulation.
31 in regulation, but yeah, I don't see a scenario where they stop AJ Brown now.
What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it a few minutes ago. I don't think the Commanders have the capacity to stop a guy like AJ Brown. You know, the Jets didn't, the Dolphins didn't. You look at every other team they've played, there's not been a defense that has been able to slow down what is basically a force. And I think that's the only word you can use to describe AJ Brown. I don't see any way the Commanders stop him unless something legitimately like slows AJ Brown down, like an illness. Like I don't see any factor on the Washington defense besides them basically putting 3 defenders on him at once and basically sell out to stop him. Be like, Devonta Smith, you beat us, or Dallas Goedert, you beat us, where AJ Brown doesn't have that yardage total streak extended.
They have their best corner is Kendall Fuller, and like every great highlight I remember these two teams playing each other the last 2 years, Kendall Fuller's on the wrong side of it. Like that Devontae Smith bomb down the field, Devontae Smith's successive catch in the end zone over him. He's on the wrong end, a lot of bad highs, and he's their best corner. I just don't see them stopping him.
So I have two. I'm conflicted on this because half of me is like, okay, the Eagles could get up very quickly in this game, and then you've got Jalen Hurts, who you could just pull, and then, or you could just run the ball down and run them to death, like what we saw the Eagles do the entirety of the 2022 season. Like we could see something like that, and that would stop AJ from getting it. On the other side of that, Nick Sirianni is just a normal ass dude, and he's just like us, and he force fed the ball to Devontae Smith in 2021 in that last game to get him the record. He gives the ball to Boston Scott against the Giants in order for him to just keep his nickname, the Giant Killer. I think that it would be a feather in his cap to have AJ Brown break that record too.
And I think that's why the guys love him. He knows those individual achievements. Fans all the time sit there and say, these guys don't care about this stuff. All they care about is winning and stuff like that. That's not true. These guys, this is how they get their contracts. This is how these guys get these big numbers when it's time for contract time. They want these Pro Bowls. They want these individual records. They want these individual accolades. They want their catches. So, and Nick Sirianni, the reason they love him so much is because Nick Sirianni remembers who's in line for like longest streaks of whatever. Right. And he's going to make sure that if AJ Brown is playing the Tennessee Titans, AJ Brown's going to get the ball. He knows if AJ Brown is within reach of getting anything, he's going to do everything he can to help him get that record. He's going to start Jason Kelce for a play and pull him out to keep the streak going. He's going to do all those things, and that's what they do.
Also, AJ Brown won his first ever Player of the Week award, which is crazy. How did I could have sworn he would have won that last year against the Steelers. So
I don't know who won it that week, but I would have thought the same thing. But that side tends to happen sometimes.
Yeah, I didn't look at. Somebody must have had just a gargantuan mammoth game in order to edge him out for that one. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Okay, and then predictions for the final score.
I'm gonna stay around 31. The Commanders are giving up 29 points a game, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna stay around the 30 range, 31. And I think the Eagles make a couple stops they didn't make last time, so I'm gonna say 31-14. I say 31-20. Just give them a couple field goals.
I'm gonna say that this is finally the dominant Eagles performance, wire to wire, that maybe we haven't quote unquote seen. They've had some tougher opponents, some tougher defenses, and I think you're gonna see a very good Jalen performance, whether it's through the air, on the ground combination. I think you're gonna get at least 3 touchdowns out of him. I think the defense is going to get a touchdown. I'm going to say they win this 35-10.
Okay. I see, because I'm going to go. Eagles are going to get 29 points. I think it's going to be. We're going to see some more red zone struggles, but it's going to be incredibly frustrating. Over under on QB draws in the red zone, I would set it at about 5, and then I would take the over on that because they're addicted to doing that.
Even though Jalen's hurt, they're going to keep running them.
I don't understand it. The fact that they did that in that first drive, that first red zone drive, and Jalen said that he got hurt before that season. What the hell? Or before that game? What are you doing? It's so frustrating and mind-boggling. Anyway, but I think it's going to be the offense gets 3 touchdowns and also kicks 3 field goals. That's where I'm getting that 29 from. And then, but in order for the Eagles to do that, I almost want to say the Commanders 7 or 9. I'm going to go 29-9. They're only going to kick field goals.
No, you got no touchdowns.
No touchdowns for the Commanders.
Cool.
I think I'm all in on Sean Desai now. What he did last week, and then watching people's breakdowns of the the all 22, what he did was an absolute masterclass. And I think that he's going to be able to make the adjustments. Jim Schwartz couldn't shut down Terry McLaurin. Jonathan Gannon, obviously couldn't shut down Terry McLaurin. I think Sean Desai might be the perfect mix of those two, the aggressive and passive defense, where I think that there's a chance that he could be able to get Terry McLaurin to have a quiet game. And then also Kevin Byard. Let's do it. Middle Tennessee State University backfield, baby. Let's go with that. So yeah, I'm going 29-9. That's what I'm doing. And then the last thing, we need to come up with a graphic for this. Storylines for next week. What do we think the storyline going into next week is going to be?
How hurt is Jordan Davis, and when will he be back? Especially if he misses this week. Like, where's the big guy? When is he coming back? Yeah, I'm for a team that have these lax practices and everything. Like, a lot of guys get hurt on Friday. Like, I don't understand what it is.
Right.
Seems like that'd be your walkthrough day and everything. Guys are just messing up hamstrings and stuff on the last day of practice. So I don't know, but I'll go where's Jordan Davis?
I think for me, it's basically going to come down to, hey, the Eagles offense looks great. How do they match up against the Cowboys? I don't think anyone's going to really – I don't think it's going to be anything gigantic to take out this game. And why is that? I think A.J. Brown has a great game. I think the Eagles offense rolls like a locomotive. I think the Eagles defense shuts down Sam Howell. Ho-hum, it's what you expect from the Eagles against the Commanders. I think where there would be a storyline is if you have another instance of the Commanders drop 20-plus points on the Eagles and the defense doesn't look great, and Jalen maybe has a struggle or two here or there, and then people unwarranted would be like, oh, are they going to even be able to beat Dallas? And then they end up killing Dallas, and it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. And that's usually how these things go. I don't think that's what happens, but if that does happen, I'm not going to hit the panic alarm because it's an NFC East game. I'm not panicking over one slip up, even if it does happen. And look, the Eagles are just a very good team overall. I don't think this game has any bearing on that. But as I said, I think the storyline is going to be the Eagles look great. How do they match up against the second best team in their division?
And will Jalen Hurts play because he's still hurt?
Always.
Yeah. Jeez, he's just perpetually.
I can't believe he's hurt this early in the season. That's bothering me. But
it ain't great.
That's the storyline. What's going on with Jalen Hurts' leg?
I think that is a good one. That is a good one. But I think, and this is kind of twofold. I think that Dallas Rams game is going to be a shootout. So I think that going into Dallas week, it's going to be can the Eagles defense shut down a Dallas offense is what I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be kind of a easy answer to that question is obviously yes, but I think that's what it's going to be. I think it's like, oh, they had to beat up little brother in Washington this week, but how are they going to do against a team that's actually functioning? So I think that's where it's going to be.
I also think an additional one could be insert player X here that was traded to the Eagles. How did they impact them?
That's good too.
Because I'm not gonna make a prediction that they're gonna trade for Derrick Henry or some slot corner or another defensive end. The NFL trade deadline's weird in that case where you go from, oh, there's nothing's happening to, hey, there were 7 trades today. Let's talk about them. And there was no rumblings from Schefter or anyone that is an insider because they didn't have it. And now all this happens. So
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just very interested to see how everything unfolds and how the trade deadline actually happens, because I think a bunch of teams can make additions, but there's a lot of parity in the league, and there's not really any teams or too many teams that are just completely cratered. Like the team you brought up, the Colts. You can make an argument that they're still alive for the wild card, and that's what that third wild card does, right? You can make the argument that if Tennessee somehow finds a way to win this week, they're not going to sell off that much. But on the flip side, those teams lose again, trade looks more likely. And I think that brings up another point. I think they should move the trade deadline back.
I was just getting ready to say that.
Yeah, it's too early in the year. Like, what week are we? We're heading into week 8, right? I feel like it should be like week 12.
Yeah, it especially with like you just said, adding another team into the playoffs. There's not enough teams that are dead. Like there's just not enough action. But my question was going to be, do you remember what was the trade that happened last year on
McCaffrey?
Was that on the trade deadline?
It was close to it.
Okay, because I remember there was like some trades that were happening like at 4:00.
Yeah, I think McCaffrey was down to the wire. I'm not 100% on that though.
Okay. Do you guys have anything else?
Good.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us on this the Nest and Inside the Iggles live show. Couldn't get that one out. Like I said, Eagles are going to Landover, Maryland on Sunday. They're going to take on the Washington Commanders to sweep the series. Sweep the series. Let's sweep that. I don't see a reason why they can't, baby. So that's where we're at. Thank you guys very much for joining us again. That's Jeffrey Knox. That's Brandon Pockris. My name's Jake Beckman. Y'all have a good weekend and go Birds.